We are back to 17-man teams, and I'm finally in top 1,000. Yes, and lockout finally lifted. Happy days for all of us around town. Now, it's gonna be fun. It's gonna be the survival of the fittest, the battle of which point of difference guy you pick, the battle of your best 17, and that 15 to 21 range. How good is yours, and how good does it compare to other people? I think is going to be how this one plays out. And a lot of people are going to be targeting the same or similar amount of stars in their sides. We've got the Isaiah Yo's, the Latrells, Payne Haas in a few weeks there. We've got Cleary, people will be getting back. Herbie Farnworth, most people have already, but we are still losing players that are of high ownership, and that's what you saw with Dylan Lucas. And I do think that helps overall with trying to separate a few teams with the percentages on players and different things like that. There are probably near half of the players in my side aren't owned by like 60%, and as soon as you're in that sort of 75 or below range, it could be between 50 and 75% of now that I'm finally in the top 1,000, let's go with the top 1,000, 50 to 75% of teams owning someone is still there's still a big percentage that don't, right? So we've seen that with Herbie. How many people we know that don't, and you're going to hear from Mitch tomorrow. He still doesn't have Herbie. So there are big differences in teams, and you'll see there's big differences in scoring as well. We go to the top rankings, and our boys Andrew and Jake still 1 and 2, with Andrew having a clear 111 point lead on the next non-JBFA crew player in August. So shout out to August for being up here for so long now. Squad values come in at different shapes and sizes as well, with Andrew absolutely flying, almost up at 14.7 million. Jakey V, that's the one thing I've got you this year with right now, is the squad value by 40k. Love that. Love to see that. But you're up in second, and I'm 864 spots away from you. But in terms of scores this week, so Andrew ended up having a 766. Myself had a 756. Jakey was 736. Even in this alone, all these guys in a similar position are differences of between 20 and 40 scores. Your Mungo versus Jamie Brown, love that. So we'll claim King of as one of our own as well, given he's got my name in there. Let's see if we can find a different one. 747 there, 742. So a lot of these guys up here are similar in a way, depending on a few different factors. But for looking at different leagues, there is going to show it a little bit more. So look at the Gargarov Cup and some of the scores we ended up with there. Now we see mid 600 scores, 621, 694s. Scoop had a 690 there. Longy had a good score at 786. I was in a range of improving a little bit. You see a 550 odd. You see some early 700s. So even in weeks where it's just the 13 players, you can still have point of differences. You can still make up ranks very, very clearly as well. So that's the thing we want to talk about. Some people are like, it just gets all too close in everyone wanting to buy the same players. But when you are playing 17 guys, you're probably going to have 10 guys, 12 guys that are going to be the same as other teams you come up against, maybe 13, but then that final 4 and the amount of trades you end up holding, these types of things will play a factor, because there will be lots of people that go into this week and they've come into it with 0. They spend 4 this week, and they probably use 1 or 2 the following week, and they're sitting there with 3 or 4, 2, 3, 4, maybe 5 if they're lucky, if they held a couple this week, coming into this week, that they're going to be getting through 6 or 7 rounds with 2 to 4 trades. And if you're sitting there with 7 in that time, things can happen and things can change very, very quickly. As we saw this week, it at least forced one trade for everyone, that people were going to make trades, but they were going to sell other people. Dylan Lucas, who was owned by almost everyone, I think Terrell May's the only one that's owned by absolutely everyone in the top 5k, but Lucas was in the high 90s there as well. He becomes a forced trade, and yes, he's got good cash on him at 689k, but it's forcing that move that maybe keep someone who's an actual playing player but is someone that people wanted to sell. It keeps them in their side, and then they still have that itch to want to sell them as well. So when you're looking at certain teams, I've got Nico Hines. It's not very owned. Nafahu White's still fairly low. Nwangani Tuaze is low. Karaz, not too high at the moment, sort of mid numbers. Similar with Campbell, he's just about 70 at this stage. Teddy's a decent number now. Cleary, still not a crazy number. Colin Matangi is. Guys like Turbo aren't, who are, point of difference type players. Hosking's pretty low ownership. Tarpany's getting lower. Connor Watson's not very high right now. Isaiah Yeo will after this week. So just when you are making decisions, try not to go too crazy on the point of difference guys, because if someone is 70, 80%, there's still 20 to 30 that don't own. And you want the best scorers in your team. So just pick those guys that you think are going to be the best. And, for me, in this setup right now, yes, Nico Hines came off a really good score, but I'm missing out on, the Isaiah Katoas, your Fogartys, these types of guys that have done really well. Missing out potentially on the Prestons, the Ellie Katoas, Hudson Youngs right now in that edge position that aren't, that have been performing really, really well. In the mids, there's a few different guys, but I feel like, now I've got Isaiah Yeo looking to get Haas back in a sec. I'm fairly well covered there and in the hooking position. Centre, I've got all of the high upside guys that you could want. I'm just missing out on like the Beau Fermor, so he's another point of difference type play. So there's so many different guys that are very, very good scorers that could do really, really well for your side. Let's just look at the guys that are available this week. It takes out Pat Carrigan, it takes out Payne Haas there. But there's so many of these players that are sitting over 700k there that are currently averaging mid-50s or more, like Jerome Hughes, who again is a point of difference on my side. Guys like Britton Nickera, Beau Fermor, Preston, Adam Fanua-Blake, Kypus Paul's averaging 55. Tallis Duncan, he has a week off and people aren't speaking about him as much. So there's so many different guys that are on your radar this week or in your side that can do a great job for yourself. And to bring this all together, the reason I'm talking about this is that you've got so many different guys that can be that point of difference guy for your side, and they can help you so much at the moment. So when you're looking to sell players, and yes, the reason why I'm saying this is because we've got this influx of trades and you can make 4 this week. Someone might look at Fogarty and go, oh God, he's just average. Horsburgh, no, he's averaging 54. It's just average, and it's like, well, I want to upgrade that guy. The Tarpany situation's an interesting one just because the reduction in the last 4 weeks. Adam Fanua-Blake coming off this low one, people looking to sell him, but he's a mid-50s guy. So I personally end up selling Yongi, and I've got Tarpany sitting in there, and he's firmly in my best 17 this week. That's the way I wanted to play it. I've got the best 13 out in the park in the middle, and then my next 4, who are Tarpany, Hosking, Turbo, and Garrick right now with some loopers, or my next worst, I should say, that is playing this week. It looks like Zavala's probably going to miss, with Lucas being injured as well, is Fainu, and then we got King Tonga to finish. So you do need to look at where your bench is going to be at and heading towards that best 17. We also need to look at the guys that you might be looking at, pushing to sell. Fanua-Blake has 2 80s in his last 6 hitouts, which is pretty crazy. There's not many guys that can hit that number. You could be looking, Nafahu White's had 2 really good games, whereas a second ago he was a guy that not many people wanted, and now it's like, he performs really, really, really well. That may change, just like we saw with Tarpany. But Tarps has had the bye now, and Ricky, you can very much tell he's trying to manage his captain season. In the last month there, they had only had the 1 bye, so now having the second, he's got 1 more in another 4 weeks of game time, 4 or 5 weeks, something like that. They're around 24 or 25, I can't remember off the top of my dome. But he could come out this week and do really well. I've got Hosking, who's coming off 2 really good weeks, but he might come out with a few low ones now as well. So what I'm trying to get at is all of these guys can have the up weeks, and you may sell them and then they go out and do really well. You may sell them and they don't perform for you, and it works out great. Just want you to be a little bit more thoughtful with your trades and with your upgrades. I'm personally only looking to make the 2 trades this week, but then when I really break it down, I'm like, well, do I actually need to make the second? I've been talking about Latrell being a a very high priority for myself. And that's all well and good. But a second one, I've been looking at guys like Crichton and a few other players in that edge position to shore that one up. Also, players in the mid and different things like that. Now, is it worth making that upgrade to get to an Angus Crichton? Does he just make it a little bit of a safer looking squad with with him being a forward? It's always nice to have those types of guys filling out your 17 as the extras there, rather than having to rely, as we saw this week, with some of the buy round guys, the wing fullback buy round guys in Nwangni Tawaze, in Karaz, in Campbell, that all had that lower score and did show that they're going to have some vulnerabilities across the end of the season just because of their position. Tarpanay had his vulnerability of minutes the other day, but that if he was out there for his allotment of time of near 50 minutes, he would have scored close to that 50 points. And just you can't guarantee that with these guys. And that's where having potentially the extra edges or mids on and in your interchange could be fruitful for you. It could also work better to have the strategy that I'm employing right now and having all the highest upside centers and wing fullbacks, and adding to that with Latrell Mitchell this week. Turbo, Garrick, these types of guys. Obviously, up against Melbourne this week isn't as fun, but you could go for that. You could go down that route as well and go for those upside plays, and that could be fruitful. It could also be your detriment as well. So many different ways to go about it. I just want you to think twice before you sell that generally consistent middle. I'm giving myself a warning with this as well. I gave myself the extra week to make the decision on Tarpanay at the 675k price of that 50 now. Is he going to score under a 50 average from here to the end of the season? That's the question you've got to ask. It's probably a no, given his pedigree, and he's already had the lower minutes, and he's okay injury wise and everything like that. So those types of questions are very interesting. When we've got Hosking in there at 611, do we need another 600k edge? I've already got another one there in the Fahu White. So are we just looking to buy more of those guys? Is that filling a void? Is that helping us in any way? Does him at 600k, does that help for the following week when I'm really going to want Payne Haas? Now, that's my question. How do I get up to Payne Haas the following week at 873k? Now, if I was to use a couple of trades this week and go for Latrell Mitchell from Lucas, then there goes 50k out of my 180 down to 130k. If I went somewhat of a sideways thing or a slight upgrade, let's just say it's Savala to Crichton, it's basically the same price, right? So that in itself is helpful enough, but it's still 130k that I need to find to be able to get up to a Payne Haas. So that's where, Tarpanay at 675k is an interesting decision. The other interesting thing I am finding in my side is because I haven't really got that cash out that some people have in Lawson and these types of guys, that a King Tonga or a Latu Fainu there could end up going down. It could be a Garrick, these types of guys. Could be Hosking, could be another injury this week. We don't know. That's the other thing, one of my high price guys could get injured this week, and that's just a very easy straight swap to Payne Haas. So a few different things can happen, and that's why I think as well, just giving yourself the extra week to survive, to get through, to then see what happens on the other side. You may not have been sure who you were going to trade after this week, and a few people that were looking at bringing in more gun mids or edges, and they had like a Forgetti in their side, and I was like, bro, just play him and then make the decision next week. And it's been made very, very easy this week who to trade out because of injuries. And Savala, Lucas, one of them may be a decent hold this week based on looping purposes alone. And that's something to think about with almost full 21-man squads now, is having that potential guy to loop on a weekly basis. And this week it's the Broncos. The following week it is the Dolphins. So having Herbie there as at least one looper is good in my side. And then following weeks there, other teams have them. Clearly, Jamie. But you may or may not have the necessary players to fit those weeks and have those loopers. So I potentially would have to go down to a cheapie next week to get to Payne Haas. But yeah, that's the thing. If I was to go launch, it's not banned on here, Mitch, by the way. If I was to launch 3 or 4 trades this week and get down to 6 or 7, to then have to use 2 next week to get Haas via getting a cheapie, I'm down to 5 for the 6 weeks, and that doesn't feel as nice as if I was to just use 1 or 2 this week, and then I could feel like I'd be a bit more comfortable to use the 2 next week, getting down to 6 and having 1 a week for the rest of the season. So that's the general thought process there. As I said, with the rankings, shout out to Andrew and Jake flying the flag for the boys. We also have a boy Harry in full of fantasy there in 18th, who's going very, very well. What we've actually got is 15 people from the private group are in the top 100. So put that into perspective, guys. There's 400 people in the private crew, and 15 of those guys are in the top 100, which is absolutely wild. It's a testament to all you guys for working with me and for listening strong, and for the community that we have. It's just been an absolutely incredible ride this year, and hopefully we can continue in that first slot and keep moving forward. And I hope this video has helped you guys, the podcast, whichever way you are listening or watching, guys. Make sure to go check out the podcast, guys. If you could rate it 5 stars, that would be absolutely incredible, and just another way to help promote this channel and this podcast there. So thank you on that one. We've had Les move into 26 with a 755, was good with him. Jeremy into 31st, another great score there. And then John sitting there comfortably in 46, with Danny just outside the top 50. So 6 in the top 50 and then 15 in the top 100 there, which is absolutely incredible. So shout out to Danny in 7th, Hayden in 8th, Jackson in 9th, Brendan in 10th. And we go all the way down to Chris there. And we've got Nigel, who is in the crew but hasn't joined the actual private group league code yet, which is, come on, mate, get in there. He loves being under the radar, but sometimes we just have to say it out loud, which is where he cops it. But 59th for myself, there's in the top 1,000. Finally, it's been a long, nice 19-week journey to get there, but to be 59th in the crew at 866. And just to have a look at a couple of different teams, like we'll go to Oscar's teams there in 299th, and just some comparisons across the squads there. So AFB and Kaipis Paul, 2 different players. Fogarty number 3, Drinkwater number 4 there. Does have Hines, which is good stuff. Sitting there with Tavanga and Duncan as the different numbers there, and then Stewart. So yeah, pretty similar to what I said, about the 7 players that are going to be different. So 14 players that the same in this team. And then we'll look at a couple others who we got. Mr. David in there. So he's got Payne Haas still, Katoa 2, Hughes and Fogarty 4. And then Drinkwater 5, Faketi 6. Bird 7, Duncan 8. Yes, 8 differences. So this will be pretty normal, I think, across most squads there. And just shows that, if you're playing 6 or 7 of them and leaving 1 or 2 out, right? 5 or 6, 7, whatever, leave 1 or 2 out, then there's going to be discrepancies in scores. And we've seen in the 17-man weeks that you could be ahead of someone else by 200 points if things go correct. If you got Drinkwater and someone else, and Drinkwater owners, it keeps getting smashed. See Chris, does Chris have him? Yeah, of course he does, given he's a Cowboy fan. It could be discrepancies like that, like a 20 for those guys. And then you get Farnworth on the other side, if you don't have him, goes and gets an 80 or a 90 or 100 and dominates. So yeah, they're the kind of things to think about at the moment, and which one of those players that you own has the highest upside. I'd definitely try to hold on to those guys. Oh, Mitchy boy, beat me by 3. Good stuff. And to finish this one off, guys, big thanks to everyone for tuning in. If you are interested in finishing off the year in style in the private group, then the information is in the description on how to pay, and I'll get you in straight away tonight following this video. Good stuff. Appreciate it. Now, Jordan's still in first. He's in at 17th overall rank, which is incredible. Mr. Terrence, the casual turtle, it's 305 for him. It's all very close up at this point. We got Jake in at 354. Austin in at 383, which is very exciting for him that he's sticking strong up there. I'll keep giving him crap that he fell away last year, and I tell him it's not going to happen this year. No chance. And then 700s for Nick, followed by myself in 6th. So did move up a spot, very small change with Mr. Christopher Cook, a 722 for him, but still in that top 1,000, which is good. We've got Prue, we've got Hamish, we've got Daniel Longy in there, just ahead of Mitchy boy. Come on, Mitchy, sort it out. Make sure you go back ahead after this week. And then following down the line, we've got Mikey J in at 150, kind of holding fire there. The Scoopman in at 2626, as we keep saying, really, really solid in fantasy, but absolutely flying in SC this year, so a good player across the board. And then we've got a few of the other guys down below. So that's it, guys. We'll leave it at that one there. So yeah, general strategy for my side, as you can see, looking at keeping that strong 17, not having any weeks where you could get caught out for having a cheapie in your side. I think having one cheapie maybe over the next 2 weeks, something that I'll look at as potentially a non-player, a potential looper, but we know that we can get caught out in like round 26 and 27 as well. We'll look at potential restings and stuff like that over the next few weeks as a bit of a deeper dive, but we saw last year that kind of cooked us a bit. Apart from 1 or 2 teams, the rest of them ended up having to play given the league was so close. So that's the results video for the week, guys. Tune in tomorrow for Mitch's video, and then it'll just be him this time ranting away, telling everyone how smart he is for using all of his trades. And then we'll get into team list Tuesday and the best buys from there. We're back to normal programming, thank goodness, which means we should be able to get our Sunday night video out a bit better and a bit faster with Nikki. So go and check that one out as well. If you love all the content, you are the best. And yeah, we're back to Thursday night games, which is great. So look forward to seeing how this week plays out and answering a lot of questions there. And we'll see you in the next one, guys.